It's always the same with far leftists like Trudeau. Institute childish, disastrous policies and then blame someone else for the consequences. Now, of course, right now, because of his appalling polling numbers, dear leader Trudeau is attempting to stoke class resentment because, well, he's a far leftist and that's what they do. And he's taking aim now at retirees, who he claims are selfishly living in homes with extra space, instead of getting out of the way for people who arrived in Canada yesterday. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
One of the things that always comes up for me is the idea that, on housing, you have a whole bunch of older folks who are living in houses that are too much house for them right now.
Too much house for them right now? According to who? I guess according to Justin Trudeau. He's made that decision for you. He's already figured out what's the appropriate amount of space for you. The fact that it's your house and your property that you've paid for apparently doesn't matter to Justin Trudeau. And I gotta say, it seems like Trudeau is really terrible at deciding things.
Like you talk to an older generation of folks, they say, oh no, I remember I had to scrimp and save for years before we could set a down payment on a home. It was really hard. It was a big expense. Housing's always hard. It's not like, grandparents, loaf of bread used to cost me a nickel or whatever it is. It's this idea that, oh no, housing was always the big expense and it was always hard to get into housing. So they see young people saying, oh, it's hard to get into housing. I'm like, yeah, no, we lived that. And to explain to them, no, you didn't.
Well, that's a perfect segue for me because
it's just the same old commie playbook, isn't it? Trying to stir up resentment. And for the record, older Canadians are very well aware of the fact that it's different now. And just like everybody else, they know why it's different. It's different because of Justin Trudeau's mass immigration policy, flooding the country with millions of people in a few short years. It's logistics, it's supply and demand. There's too many people too quickly. And everybody knows that, apparently, aside from Justin Trudeau.
I have a slight learning disability.
So what does all this come down to? Well, Trudeau's obviously got a big interest in people's houses. And what are the only three things that Trudeau knows how to do? Well, one is to embarrass himself publicly. Two, borrow money. Three, tax. So where do you think this is going? Here, from July 9th, 2024, from Michael Higgins in the National Post, does Trudeau plan to put the squeeze on older homeowners? PM discusses housing crisis and generational fairness in podcast for group that wants an annual surtax on all homes over $1 million. So an annual surtax every year. But who was Trudeau talking with here? Well, that there is Paul Kershaw. He's the founder, lead researcher, and executive chair of something called Generation Squeeze. He's also an award-winning tenured professor at the University of British Columbia, so no way he's a far-left socialist. But anyway, this group Generation Squeeze is an organization in favor of taxing people's primary residence. A report by the group advocates for an annual surtax on all homes over $1 million. Homes valued at $1 million to $1.5 million would face a surtax of 0.2%, possibly rising to 0.5% over time, and homes of $2 million would be hit with a 1% tax. So a home worth $1 million would be taxed $2,000 every year. And in a place like Vancouver or Toronto, that's pretty much every house. Now in Canada, a lot of people are house wealthy but cash poor, and that $2,000 for a $1 million house every year, especially for a senior on a fixed income. And of course, you know that this is going to go up every year, right? You know that. So this would accomplish two things for Trudeau: extract even more money out of homeowners and also drive retirees out of their houses. Well, here's an interesting tidbit about this Generation Squeeze. Guess who funds them? We've got the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, that's government, and the Public Health Agency of Canada, again, government. So the government is funding Generation Squeeze to tell Trudeau exactly what he wants to hear. This is the circle jerk that goes on in Canada, the corruption. So Trudeau funds an organization that is going to say what he wants. The organization says what he wants. And then the government-subsidized media has the activist on as an expert to say exactly what Justin Trudeau wants him to say. It's a giant circle jerk. And of course, we all know that the real problem is not seniors staying in the homes they worked for. The problem is mass migration. It's just logistics. It's just supply and demand. Trudeau brought in too many people. He caused all of these problems, all of them. But of course, all he can do is what far leftists always do, which is demonize a group. He's going to demonize home ownership as greed. I really, at this point, have no doubt that if Trudeau could, he would just seize everybody's property. Tell you that it was for equity, and then you could spend the rest of your life as a miserable serf with no hope of ever achieving anything better for yourself. And then if he didn't like it, well, of course, he'd call you a threat to democracy. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.